So I'll just let everyone else in as they arrive, but thanks again for making the time to join. Yeah, it's, I don't know, this year is just one wave after the next, after the next, after the next. There doesn't seem to be any off button. Desperately trying to find it. Keep thinking maybe sugar will help, but not really. I don't know about any of you, but I am craving sugar, chocolate.
I thought chocolate Haagen-Dazs ice cream would help, and you know what? It did a little for a moment.
For a moment. Yeah, definitely for a moment. Yeah, this week, I mean, more than ever, I've been finding that I've been needing a lot of chocolate. Maybe it's self-soothing. Okay, so let's just see. I'm sure there are more people are going to join as we go on. Yeah, so I kind of checked in before we started to see where things are at the moment for us all. And there were two kind of words that really came up in my field, and those were integration and preparation. So those seem to be the two themes that we are currently working with. I know that this week I wrote about integration, how as the Lions Gate closed, so we are going to have to integrate all of those energies. And I think we forget, well, I certainly forget, we move through these profound times and you know, it does feel that we're literally being bombarded by these energies. And that last final week of the Lions Gate, I really felt it. It was exhausting. And then, you know, it closes and you think, oh, well, that's done and dusted, moving on. But no, we have to now integrate these energies. So that is what we're going to be focusing on, certainly for the next few weeks. And, you know, my understanding of energies and how they are integrated into our being is those energies come into our energy field. So moving through the spiritual body, moving through the spiritual aspect of ourselves, they then meet the energy of the mental body. So then they have to be integrated into that body. Then through the mental body, they're integrated into the emotional body, and through the emotional body, finally integrated into the physical. So these are the different layers. These are the different layers that we're going to be moving through. So as we've integrated the Lions Gate's energies on a spiritual level, so they're going to start hitting us on a mental level. And as we integrate those energies, I think we must remember that they are going to bring up or bring to the surface stuff within us that is needing to be either released, transformed, or healed. So if we look at on a mental level, those are the patterns, those are the old programmings, the kind of cycles of thinking and thought that we've kind of, well, I suppose have become habitual for us. Those kind of things are going to be coming up for changing and shifting and healing. And I find it fascinating that I'm still listening to the Caroline Myss book that I mentioned last week. It's called The Courage to Confront Evil. And, you know, she talks a lot about using, you know, being aware of the words that we use, being aware of the thinking that we have. And I find it fascinating that I'm busy listening to that this last week, and how we're moving into this mental integration of the Lions Gate energy. And for me, it's really making me aware of thoughts that have become habitual, particularly around things that I don't like, or people that I don't particularly like, or situations that are old that still have a charge. And I'm really it's becoming very obvious in my thinking how my mind just goes to these places, trigger, you know, a negative energy is charged, a negative feeling is then charged, and so the cycle starts. So it really is important that we become aware of what is going on in our thinking and where our thoughts are taking us. And even more as we move through these incredible times of kind of heightened awareness and expansion of consciousness. As we expand our consciousness, so we become more and more aware of the impact that we have on our world. You know, the impact that we have, we can look at it from a, I suppose, a microcosm is ourselves, the impact that our words, our thinking, our thoughts, and our actions have on ourselves and our own little reality, and then how that reality impacts the larger reality. And if we are to change our world, and if we are to be able to co-create a new reality and a new world, then we really need to be conscious of what these programmings and patterning, and what the patterning is that we carry. And that co-creation is something that we need to embark upon with the energy and essence of our soul. So that is that higher aspect of us that knows better, that knows more, that can understand more, that can accept more, and can move through life and through the world in a state of grace. So those are the kind of things that we're needing to start accessing in ourselves. So really start to be aware as these things come up in your mind, in your thinking. You know, where's your thinking taking you? What are the charges that are still there that need to be released, need to be cleared, or possibly need to be healed? And as we move through that mental transformation, so there's going to be an emotional transformation as well. And often as we shift our thinking, when the emotional stuff comes up, it's not so dramatic. It's not so charged, because we've already dealt with the emotions, the thoughts that are attached to those emotions. So it becomes easier to move through that release of emotional energy. And then we will have to physically integrate those energies. And, you know, the physical integration can be interesting, because it can manifest as exhaustion, the need to sleep more, the need to rest more. So we need to be conscious of what is it that our body is also needing as these different layers are as we move through these different layers and we integrate the energies. And, you know, the second word that came up for today was preparation. So as we are integrating all of this energy that we've kind of been flooded with, we are preparing ourselves to step forward into a new reality and into a new life. You know, from a timeline perspective, I always try and see if we can get a timeline as to how long is this process actually going to take? How long are we going to be stuck in the mud before we can lift ourselves out of it and move off into creating this new reality? And I still can't kind of get it. You know, I kind of get, you know, timings of certain events that are going to happen. But I think it is partly, I know mud lotus, that's a good one, Pat, thank you. Yeah, we're all rising out of the mud to become those beautiful lotus flowers. So the timing of things, what I've been told is you know, stop focusing on the timing, stop worrying about when this reality is going to emerge, when you're going to be able to step into it. It's going to happen when it happens, and you're probably not even going to notice because you're so busy doing what you need to be doing. So just get on with it. So I'm kind of hearing that advice and taking it on and thinking, okay, stop asking the question, because part of, you know, tapping in every week, it really does give me an opportunity to see, you know, I mean, there are times I sit there and I kind of think, oh, you know, we're still moving through stuff. We're still processing stuff. I so badly want to be able to, you know, open up today and say, we've done it. We're through. We're over it. We can celebrate. But no, not this week. This week we are integrating and preparing. And I think that integration and that preparing is going to happen for a while.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So what does our individual movement that we keep wanting a timeline for, how does that relate to the collective? Because the collective is down, you know, kind of fighting. So aren't we a reflection? I mean, aren't we, isn't there like a tipping point we have to hit before we feel a difference?
I think there are two parts to that question. I think the one part is as individuals, we are moving forward very much as individuals. Our focus is on ourselves as individuals. Our focus it must be on connecting and awakening a deeper connection to our soul so that we become the sovereign beings that we are. And we need to move through into the new earth or into the new reality as a collective, yes, but we need to be sovereign beings in that process. We cannot move through as a collective dragging the masses behind us. It doesn't work like that. So, I think that there are possibly forerunners or way showers that will move. It's going to happen in waves. So there'll be the first lot that move through. Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth Rose. I was told in my Akashic realm, I couldn't carry anyone over the line. Exactly. We're not taking anyone with us. We do have to move through this as a sovereign being. And what does sovereign mean for us? We've got to also define that for ourselves. What does it mean to be solely connected and responsible for ourselves, our own energy, our own thought, our thoughts, our own emotions, our own responses and reactions to everything? And when we move through as a sovereign being, when we meet other sovereign beings, there's no need to dominate, to control, to manipulate, because everyone knows, you work in a community, everyone knows, okay, the food needs to be grown, the water needs to be collected, the children need to be looked after, the community works together, making sure that everything is done, rather than someone standing and saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, that's your job, that's your role. We work together as sovereign beings, meaning we all take responsibility for everything. And I don't think we're quite there yet. Unfortunately, I think we've still got some time to get there. Thanks. Nancy's just said a message. I think you're right. It will be in waves. Too much resistance to moving from many. But also remember, the resistance is necessary. We need something to push against. We need something to launch ourselves off. Resistance is a good thing. In so many aspects. I mean, if you look from a political aspect, certainly here in South Africa, we've got some very interesting political parties and politicians. There isn't just one or two, there aren't just two political parties. We've got a whole lot. And there's one particular party that's quite militant and quite communist in their views, and they've got a big following. And a lot of South Africans are afraid of them. But actually they have such an essential part, because without them and their resistance and their push at the government for what they're doing, a lot of the things wouldn't be exposed. We wouldn't see what was being hidden. We wouldn't see the corruption, because these guys are pushing for that. They are resisting the flow of what is coming at them and saying, let's look at things differently. So we need resistance. And for me, often, I think we've also got to get out of that space of judgment. We don't need to judge another person's journey or another person's path. We can all stand on our little rock and say, well, I've got, I've got I've got all the answers, and I know the direction we're going in. And no, I only know my direction. The fact that all of you are moving in a similar direction to me is fantastic, so I don't feel so alone. But I think that we cannot judge anyone else's path. We have to understand that everyone has a purpose and a soul purpose. So even if we look at people and we think, oh, well, they're resisting the changes, maybe that's their purpose. Maybe, from a soul perspective, they've come in as that resistance that we need to launch ourselves from, to push against, so we move forward rather than stay stuck. And often, we human beings, we can become very comfortable in the discomfort. And if we don't have something to push us out of that, we will stay stuck. So that resistance, again, is a necessary force that will get us to move when we feeling like it might be a bit too much like hard work. So don't look too much at, whether so-and-so is getting it right, or so-and-so is moving, or so-and-so is going to be entering into the new earth and that one's going to be left behind. I don't think it works like that. I think we're moving away from that kind of dualistic, polarized consciousness, and we're moving towards unity consciousness. Life is showing us how out of balance everything is. Yes. Elizabeth Rose, maybe when we get there, the resistance will be less polarized. I agree. And if we're moving towards being sovereign, meaning we are directly connected, we have our own channel of connection to source, we have our own space within ourselves where we contain our soul, then we allow and accept everything, recognizing that it's all part of the whole and it's a reflection of us. If we are all divine beings and we're all part of the whole and we're all connected and we make up one great big organism, well then, those people are a part of us. And if we're seeing resistance in the world, where's the resistance in us? If I'm seeing other people not doing the work, where am I not doing the work? So looking back at my notes, so preparation and integration. Part of that integration and that preparation it's a very internal process. So it does mean that we're really going to be coming into ourselves, into that internal space within ourselves, so that we can actually do what needs to be done from an integration level. And if I look at everything I looked at today, there's new beginnings all over it. So as we integrate on each level, as we integrate on a spiritual level, on a mental level, on a emotional level, and on a spiritual level, so we open up the way for new opportunities, new beginnings. And some of those new beginnings are going to be pretty subtle new beginnings, because when we integrate the new energy and we release what comes up as a result, our perspective shifts and we start to see ourselves, we start to see our world, we start to see our life, we start to see our relationships in a different way. And then we make different choices because we have more of an idea of, what am I getting myself into? So there might be things that you thought that you were doing that in the next couple of weeks are going to completely shift and change. And one of the interesting things that I was looking at, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, because Uranus has just gone retrograde. So it goes retrograde until January next year. So from yesterday until, I think it's the 20th or the 21st of January, it's going to be in retrograde. And that means that we've got 5 planets currently in retrograde. and I just feel like the whole of 2020 has been a retrograde year. It seems every 5 minutes there's something that's in retrograde. But at the moment, we've got Jupiter in retrograde, Saturn in retrograde, Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, and then Uranus went yesterday. So these, when we have so many planets in retrograde, it really is an opportunity for us to delve inside. Those energies are pulling us inside, not about focusing on the external world, not about focusing on the external reality. It's about focusing on our own inner reality and really tapping into that reality. So if we think about, we've got months of these retrograde moments. It's not like Mercury that is only retrograde for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. These planets are retrograde for months at a time. So we've got the next 6 months, 5 months, 6 months to really work internally on what's and tap into what's happening for us internally. And that will enable us to make the shifts and the changes that we need to, that will take us into our new lives and into our new realities. And I think that, as the world starts to open up a little bit and lockdowns end, my sense of things is it's going to be this open and then a close and then an open and a close. And it's a bit like what we are being asked to do for ourselves is that, we need to go internally. And as we go internally, we do the work. So our perception shifts, and so we can expand our perception. Then we're called to go back inside again, do the work, shift, and so we go out. So this whole lockdown process it feels like that's what we're going to be doing. And it does give us an opportunity to really view the challenges and the obstacles that we seem to have in our lives right now from a different perspective. And that gives us the opportunity to make new choices and take a different direction. Just seeing if there's anything else here. No, nothing at the moment. Anyone else have anything else they'd like to share, or any other questions?
I lost another close friend this week. She was my Reiki teacher, my Reiki master teacher, and a good friend, and I've known her for years. And it was one of those, I wondered why I hadn't heard from her, but I didn't know she was sick. I guess she got sick in March, and she passed this week. So that was a little sad this week, and made me think how many people are leaving the planet right now. Not that I blame them, but I don't know that. So that was on my mind all week, is because like she was only 2 years older than me, so it wasn't, she got sick with pancreatic cancer, but why do you think souls, clearly make that decision to, so many are leaving now?
Well, I always celebrate the death of someone, in the sense that they're done. Their purpose is done. Their reason for being here and for their lifetime, they've completed it. So for me, it's always a celebration, and a bit like you, lucky them, off they go. But my sense is that, because we are in such a pivotal time in our evolution, the evolution of our human consciousness, I think that there are going to be these waves of people who are able to go, their purpose was to bring us to this point. And once we're at this point, they leave, because the rest of their work happens on the other side. It happens from a different place. I lost a good friend 3 or 4 years ago now, and maybe not even that long ago. And she was instrumental in me getting into this work, and she really she was one of my guinea pigs in the very beginning when I started. And she died, and she left behind 2 children, small kids, And at the time I was like, I know you, like, how could you have left your kids? Why would you have chosen this time to go? And, there was quite a lot of like real conflict in me around, because I knew her and I knew, how incredible she was and how important her children were for her. And I've had the opportunity and the gift of being able to communicate with her, because she's now on the other side. And she's come to me and she's just said, if you knew how good it was on this side, you would be out of here. But she says her work is there now. She said, my work is on the other side now. I've got to be there to be able to facilitate and to do what I need to do. The rest of my purpose is there. And she still comes every now and then and, makes a joke or two about how I'm still stuck here and she's having a lovely time.
That's the friend I lost a couple months ago, one of my oldest friends, I told you guys about, Chris. That's exactly what he said when he came through, a friend of mine who's a medium, and he said, my work is, I'm done here, but I'll help you from that side. I still yell at him a lot, but, because there's just so many times I think, oh, I really want to know what he would think about all of this. And I suppose I ask him and sort of hear his answers in my head, but yeah. And then I go, yeah, do you blame him?
Yeah. And interestingly enough, I think we also have to remember that we've chosen the day we're going to be born, and we've chosen the day we're going to die, and whether we die in an accident or we die through an illness or we die because of a virus, we're going to die. We have to go somehow. We're not all going to be evolved enough to, be like a Buddhist monk and step out of our body and off, off we go. We can hope for that, but there's something has to happen to facilitate the transition. And for those of us left behind, of course, it is painful and it's difficult to live life without them being physically here. But there's also an interesting question, I think, Jennifer, you've just posted, about the timeline question. Does time move in a linear fashion, or is it more like movement in the movement into ourselves and back outwards into the world? I'm going to answer that question now. Elizabeth Rose, you've just said, that came through for my dad recently. He has so much to look forward to when he passes. Spontaneous combustion. Yes. I mean, look, I have had, even our death is agreed upon to assist others in awakening. I agree. That is key. And I've been lucky enough to be able to see what it looks like on the other side. Of course, not being able to step over, but I've kind of had a view of it, and yeah, way more fun. Okay, so Jennifer, that's an interesting question, because I think we've liked to think that we understand how time works, but I've always understood that time in this reality, on this earth, is a bit like something's been stretched outwards. We've taken this moment and we've pulled it apart, and in that pulling apart, we're having all these different experiences. My understanding that as we move through the shift in consciousness, time is shifting and changing, and the movement of our growth is shifting and changing. I can't remember if I've mentioned flipping the chakras to you lot. Okay. I think it was on one of the workshops I mentioned it. So in all the teachings around chakras, we've been taught that the chakra I'm going to use my throat chakra as an example. The throat chakra sits like this, or all the chakras, move through our system like this. And the energy moves in and out like that. So when I first started learning about or tapping into all of this energetic stuff, I always thought, this doesn't make sense. Why are we sending energy in and out through each of these points? When actually, when I'm doing energy work, I'm having to clear out half of the stuff that doesn't actually belong to them, because they've absorbed so much through their chakras. This still doesn't make any sense for me. And if the energy field surrounds us, and it moves outwards, expands outwards like it's breathing, how does this all work? It didn't make any logic sense to me. So then I kind of tapped into it, and I was shown that actually there are 12, we've evolved beyond just 7 chakras, and we're moving into 12 or 13 chakras. And then I was told through a process that was pretty uncomfortable about 15 years ago, was told that I had to flip my chakras. At the same time, I was being guided to, activate my light body, and there was a whole lot of things that I was told that I had to do. But flipping the chakras meant that I had to take each chakra and turn it that way, so that they stacked like a channel through the center of me rather than that way. And so I started to understand how that actually works better for me. I feel like I'm containing my energy. I feel like my connection, which needs to be to source and to the earth, is more stable. I'm not feeding off energy or sending off energy to anyone else. I'm not being depleted energetically. I work energetically with people almost every single day, and people often say to me, aren't you depleted? Aren't you exhausted by this work? No, I'm not. And for me, it's because these chakras, flip them all. So it's a very easy process to do. And if I've worked with you energetically and done a session, I've probably flipped your chakras anyway. So don't worry about it. Just make sure you don't flip them back, please. So that, Jennifer, it makes so much sense. It does make sense. It made more sense to me that the chakra system worked like that. And in that way, we're able to, that idea of time and how time moves and how we move through time changes, because we're not connected to all these different threads of energy. We are sovereign. We are ourselves. We are contained within ourselves and with our own energy. So that's just an interesting little, see if you can do it for yourselves if I haven't done it for you already. It certainly works for me. Okay, anything else anyone would like to share? Lorraine, I think mine are already stacked, but don't know of a conscious process that I've done. Look, it may, for me, what I was shown when I was guided to do this process, it took about 2 weeks, and I was told I had to meditate, I had to cleanse, and I had to meditate at the same time every day. And it's really unlike me. I don't do those sorts of things generally, but I was told that it had to happen. So it was a real process that I went through. And at the end of it, the integration of it wasn't fun at all, because I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening at the same time that I got really ill with. But I think that, all the work that we are doing, it's that kind of process that is, it's an evolutionary process. It's not like something special that, only certain people get. For me, I was shown that this is an evolutionary process. Our energy system is shifting and changing because we are shifting and changing. Our consciousness is shifting and changing. So you may well find that your chakras have already been flipped, and everything is nicely stacked in that channel. But just, if you can, just make sure that it stays like that, because that we've been taught you know, we've been taught as human beings how to work with energy by observing our families, particularly. And I remember as a 3-year-old watching my family interact energetically and thinking, so that's how it's done. Of course, it was completely dysfunctional from an energetic perspective, along with other things. But, you know, looking at how this energy was moving between all of them, and this giving of power away, and it was all happening. And so we learn by observing our families how energy happens. It doesn't mean that it's the right way. And we learn that way because we're not taught any other way. You know, kids aren't taught how to manage their energy. Thankfully, these days, you know, kids are being taught how to meditate, kids are doing yoga. You know, there are things that they're doing to support themselves from an energetic perspective. But that none of that was happening when I was a child. I was going off to church and being told that, you know, if I wasn't good, I was going off to hell. So it wasn't helpful. Okay. Any other questions or insights anyone would like to share?
Can I ask you something, Kate?
Hi, Susan. Yes.
Hi there. Last week you touched on the fact that, you know, people on a ground level are walking around with masks on, and, you know, there's a lot of that. It's very evident. Yeah. But then, so in some ways, like, people are being like muffled on the ground. But on the other end of the communication scale, you've got this global interaction going on, like all of us are from all around the world communicating. From my perspective, I'm actually deaf and I wear double hearing aids, and I'm really struggling with communication of trying to read people's expressions, sometimes depending on the size of their mask. I can't actually hear what they're saying, or I used to, you know, rely on their lips to kind of, you know, read what's going on. So it just seems as though, you know, they're two completely opposites. Like, we can communicate with the globe, but you can't have that little banter that you might used to have with somebody, you know, when you're standing in a supermarket queue. And, you know, the other thing that you said today is, you know, everything's about, you know, we're going to go into the next level of ourselves, but it's not yet. So again, it's like, you know, just opposites that are going on. And it's, I think that just adds to the whole uncertainty and new way. It's very, you know, new ground for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that it certainly adds to the uncertainty of everything. But I also think that the contrast or the conflict is being heightened so that we can see it. And, you know, I mean, my children shout at me all the time because I'm forever taking my mask off and I feel claustrophobic and I can't breathe. And, you know, I feel like people can't hear me, so I'm always pulling it down. And I kind of sat with it and I thought, you know, stop resisting this. You know, why have I got such a resistance to this damn mask? And what I was shown as well is that, you know, if we can look at that, everything that happens has purpose. So even these things that we don't like, that are frustrating, have purpose. When our mouths are closed, we can only see. And what are we being asked to see? If we're not talking, what are we being asked to see? So I kind of really sat with that. Yeah, Elizabeth Rose, The Seat of the Soul. And I thought, well, what am I being asked to see? So when I do go out into the world, I try and be more observant. I try and be, I'm finding that I'm connecting with people like the shopkeepers and the people that are sitting at the tills, and there's a different connection that is happening because now it's happening through my eyes. like I'm really seeing them. Yeah, Elizabeth Rose, I still don't want to wear the masks. Me neither. They are making me more determined to hold my light. Yeah. Yeah, I still don't like the mask. But I am working with the idea that I'm being told to keep quiet because I need to see. And how distracted do we get by talking? A lot of people just talk for the sake of talking. How do we connect with ourselves and with people in a real, tangible soul way if we can't be quiet, if we can't be still, if we can't be silent? So again, yeah.
Just a curiosity, is the whole wear a mask, as polarizing and controversial in South Africa as it is here in the States?
Well, most people are wearing masks because it's now illegal not to wear a mask. We will be fined if we're not wearing a mask. There's that, but there are a few defiant people, and you see them proudly marching down the street without a mask. Do you think? Yeah. So it's definitely a controversial subject. I mean, I find I'm wearing a mask if I'm going into a shopping center or into a shop. I'm wearing a mask if I'm going to be around a lot of people. But, if I'm going to go for a walk in nature, I'm not going to wear my mask. Yeah, Nancy, accept what is for now. It won't last forever. Yeah, accepting and agreeing are different. I agree. Thank you. Yes. Acceptance and agreeing. We don't have to agree with it, but we can accept that this is how things are for now. Jennifer, thanks. Distracted by talking, by doing silly and unnecessary things. I'm struggling to get the inner work done because I'm busy being busy. Yes, that bad habit of being busy. It is actually a habit, and I think that you need to ask yourself the question, what is being busy doing for you? Okay, so it's distracting you, yes, but it must be serving some sort of purpose. So what is that purpose? And rather than seeing it as something that you need to judge and criticize in yourself, see it as something that that for some people, being busy all the time makes them feel like they have purpose. It makes them feel like they have relevance. If they're doing something, they're being productive. There's a lot of beliefs around that. In my family, you had to be busy all the time because otherwise you were considered lazy, and lazy was the biggest insult ever, because you couldn't be lazy. So you weren't allowed to sleep in, or you weren't allowed to have a little afternoon nap. Or I've taken great pleasure in breaking both of those rules. But I think you need to look at what is the belief that you have around being busy. What does it mean? What has been taught to you? And allow yourself to be still. It could be that there is stuff that comes up that is really painful and really difficult to face and to sit with. And my suggestion then would be find someone who can sit with you in it. Don't try and do it alone. We're not supposed to be doing all of this on our own. Therapy is a beautiful thing when it's done with awareness and with someone who can sit with you as you face that difficult stuff, or the painful stuff. I'm a great believer in therapy. Yeah, Lorraine, thanks. I feel that busyness can be resistance to letting those issues that we need to clear come up. We procrastinate the clearings. I agree. And that's why if if you're struggling to do it on your own, find someone to do it with you or to help you through it, because, going into some form of therapy, whether it's once a week or once every 2 weeks, gives you an opportunity to be still. You're with someone who's literally going to hold you into that space of stillness where you allow yourself to process and allow yourself to face things that you don't necessarily want to face. Yeah, Nancy, being at home all of these months has forced me to look at the busyness. Yeah, me too. And sometimes it just becomes a bad habit. And we kind of get into the cycle of I mean, my youngest daughter, who's still at school, has decided to go back to school next week. I'm not looking forward to that. I've really enjoyed not having to get up early and rush around getting her to school, and it's going to be a real change. That said, now I have to look at procrastination. Yeah, it's the balance. Am I resisting? Am I procrastinating? Sometimes procrastination happens because we're busy processing something and we're not ready yet to embark on what it is. So sometimes there's benefit in procrastination. Madika, I agreed with Nancy. Help me finally do the inner work. Yes. And Susan, I do less now, but the time seems to be moving quicker. Me too, Nancy. Sometimes I'm just lazy. At least we know. Yeah, time is definitely moving quickly. I mean, I'll go for, I'll get up in the morning and do a few things, and the next minute it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think, well, what happened? Where'd the day go? Apparently, those things happen because we're busy on other levels. So there's a lot, our awareness or our consciousness is busy on another level. So the time seems to speed past. I often wonder what my consciousness is up to and what it's agreeing to next. Sometimes I think that that's plotting against me. Yeah, the months are definitely going by very fast. All right, so unless there's anything else anyone else would like to share, maybe we can get to do some meditating. Okay. So find a comfy spot for yourself. And when you're ready, just allowing yourself to settle in. Close your eyes. And draw your awareness into your breathing, into your breath. And using your breath, just allow yourself to relax and to let go. Relax into this moment. And settle into this space. Use this opportunity now to be still. Allow your body to be still. And allow your mind to calm. And allow your awareness now to drop down to the base of your spine, into that root chakra. In these times of integration, it can be difficult to remain grounded, to remain present. So really focusing on that root, the base of your spine. Just allow yourself to ground into that space, grounding into the center of your own being. Currently, the earth is going through her own changes and her own transformations. And from an energetic perspective, it can be a little bit unsettling to try and ground into the earth at the moment. So we find a new way of grounding, and that is grounding into ourselves. And if we ground ourselves into the root, we're grounding ourselves into our own foundation. Or the foundational energies of our being. So allow yourselves to feel that energy. And now allowing the crown, the top of your head to open. And just feeling or sensing a beam of light from source, from the divine, moving through the crown, down the center of your body and into that base. And just feeling this energy as it creates a channel of light that moves through the center of your being, stabilizing you. And once you feel that it's anchored in your root, allow it to move down your legs to anchor in the earth star chakra that sits just below your feet. And once it's anchored into the earth star, allow this energy to move outwards, to expand outwards, filling your entire body and being, your energy field with light. Allow the light to cleanse, to clear, and to wash away all negative energies, discordant energies, anything that may be creating imbalance, discomfort, disharmony. Just feel your entire body and being purified by this light. Feel all of those energies being transformed and transmuted and dissolved away. And now allow your awareness, your energy to move into your heart center, in the center of your chest. And allow yourself to drop into that space, into the space of unconditional love, peace, and balance. And just allow that peace to begin to radiate from your heart and outwards and into your energy field. And as you really settle into that space of peace, feel a sense of calm. And with this sense of calm comes a deeper understanding. and acceptance. Of yourself, of your life, and the world as it is today. Remembering that we are in a space of transition. That we are transitioning from one way of being and into another. Feel the simplicity of that. For it is just that. There's no need to justify it, to explain it. It is just simply a transition. Feel the weight of your need to make sense of the world and yourself fall away. Allow the fear that drives the sense of uncertainty fall away. Feel the resistance that comes up in you fall away. And allow yourself to move into a space of neutrality. And in the space of neutrality, recognizing that everything that occurs is necessary. That every person on this planet at this time has a part to play in this transition. And as you begin to recognize that, allow yourself to consciously draw all your energy back. All your energy that you have given away, left behind, forgotten. Allow yourself to draw it back to you now. Feel it coming back to you now. And as your energy settles back into your energy field, feel yourself becoming even more relaxed. Feel the tension leaving your body. And allow yourself a moment now to listen for any insights or any guidance that you're being offered at this time. And then when you're ready, just drawing your awareness back into the space that we have created together to this time. Taking a few deep breaths and breathing yourself into full awareness. Allowing yourself to move your fingers and your toes and opening your eyes when you're ready. Thanks, Lorraine. Yeah, this new grounding is an interesting one. I was shown a while ago that the earth she's going through her own shift and her own transition, and that by grounding into her, we kind of put a bit more pressure on her. So if we can find a way to kind of ground into ourselves, because we do have that capacity, it just eases things for the earth a bit, certainly in this time. Oh, Nancy, yep, I didn't really want to come back either. Yeah, it seems like it's a good space at the moment. And if you can, in this week, just find a space for yourself to be able to do that, to root yourself into yourself, and to just be still, even if it's just for 5 minutes. You know, we often think that, you know, we need time to be still, but 5 minutes can be enough. I know I do it for 5 minutes, and I think there's no ways I'm doing this for 5 minutes. I'm staying here for the next 15. But it's interesting how we can resist finding that space. You know, even if it's with a cup of tea, but taking the time, because it also, you know, the benefits of meditation are vast. But one of the things that it really does help us to do is to integrate. It helps with integration, and it also helps to realign our energy field and our energy bodies without us even having to do anything. Just that being still lets it happen. But if we're continually moving and busy all the time, you know, it doesn't. It does it when we're asleep, and then when we don't actually sleep very well. Lorraine's just got a message here. That's an entire new awareness for me that the earth itself is clearing and changing, as well as all the people on it. Well, this is the earth's evolution and the earth's transition, and we're just actually along for the ride. We've gone, oh, my soul needs to evolve quickly and painfully, so I'm going to go to the earth too while it goes through its own transition. You know, maybe I'll discuss, if someone reminds me next week, I'll give you some insight into what the earth's going through, and the purpose of her own evolution and transition. But it's definitely, we're just along for the ride. It's a bit of a roller coaster ride, but it's a ride. Well, thank you all so much. It's always so lovely to see you all and connect with you all. Okay, Jennifer, you remind me next week to talk about the Earth's transition. I'll make a note of it, but I've got lots of notes everywhere. May not find that one. I saw that, Elizabeth Rose. Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you. So lovely. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good week.
Thanks, Nancy. You too. Don't work too hard now that you're back.
Oh, yeah. Well, because we're winding down one semester with the students and building up to the other. So it was a little crazy, but whatever. I'm sitting at my kitchen table, so how crazy can things be?
Exactly. All right, everyone. Speak to you all next week. Lots of love. Bye. Bye. Thanks, Sonia.